All right, so my name is Matt Pisek. I am actually the executive director of the Oregon Trio Association, and I serve as kind of our tech and communications chair for our region. So I'm excited to have you all join us today and just help. I'm just going to be kind of behind the scenes facilitating some of the Zoom call stuff so our presenters can focus on what they're doing here today. This is part of kind of our NAEOP Tech Talk topics where we just try to dive deep on different tech related stuff that impacts the work that we all do in Trio. So today it is my pleasure to introduce two friends of mine, Naomi and Hillary, who are going to be taking the lead today and doing InDesign kind of intro workshop for you both. This is also just going to be at least a part 1 of 2, if not 3 series. We'll see how much interest there is and how this goes, but today is meant to be part 1 of that series as we kind of show you how some experts utilize the Adobe InDesign program within the work that they do in Trio. So Naomi, how about you jump in here first and introduce yourself?
Hi, I am Naomi McCreary. I'm the program director for the McNair program at Southern Oregon University here in Ashland, Oregon, in the beautiful mountains. And I am also the communications representative for the Oregon Trio Association. Thanks for coming.
Thank you. Hillary, you want to intro yourself?
Yes, I'm Hillary O'Brien. I am the web specialist at Boise State University, and I work with our SSS programs as well as McNair. I'm also the Public Relations Committee Chair for our Idaho Trio Association, which involves a lot of design and website elements. So thanks for being here.
Cool. And I think Naomi, you're starting us off here with just kind of a general overview. Take it away.
Yeah, let me go on and share my screen real quick. And all right. Can everybody see that? Yes, awesome. Okay, so today we're going to talk a little bit about InDesign. We're going to give kind of the basics of the program. I will give some tips and a little bit of background of where and why and how you use the program. And then Hillary is going to walk through a little bit more of the actual creating the template. What we've decided to do is, since we do newsletters a lot in our Trio programs, is to show you from beginning to end through these series of how to create a newsletter. So we'll be working kind of today on the startup, and then the next one will be like firming it up and a little bit more advanced. So to start out with about the InDesign, like I said, I'll be going over some of the general information. InDesign is an Adobe program. Most people at your institutions, I know it's really expensive to personally have Adobe Creative Suite, but at a lot of our institutions, we have them available. So if you don't already have it on your computer and you're at a university or a community college, go on and check with your IT people and see if they can download the Creative Suite for you. They work really well together, and but we're going to be focusing on the InDesign. InDesign is a desktop publishing and layout application for creating books, magazines, and brochures, as well as print and digital media. It is the industry standard for editing software for laying out long form, multiple page documents, but it's not limited just to that. Like I said, it is a part of the Adobe Creative Suite. It works really well just for single pages, but it also is wonderful for, you can do whole books, typesetting and design. So I'm going to give you just a few little tips. I don't want to take too long because I really want Hillary to have plenty of time for like the meat of this presentation. So when you're working on these InDesign documents that you're creating, there's a few things you want to remember just so you have the highest quality piece that you can. The first one is image resolution. So there's 2 types of images. There's vector images and there are pixelated images. And for print specifically, you cannot have a low resolution image. It will not come out well in print. So you want to have a 300 DPI, which means dots per inch image, or 150 DPI is also suitable sometimes for smaller pictures that are being printed, as long as you're not doing some kind of large piece. If you're trying to print a really large, like a banner or a poster, it's really best practice to use a different kind of file that is a vector file. A vector file versus a pixel file. A vector file is mathematic equations that create the image so you can blow it up to the size of a building. And pixels are the little, blocks that you see this here. You'll see on the low DPI images. A lot of times our standard, like if you're taking a picture with your phone or if you're pulling a picture off of the internet, it's going to be a 72 DPI. And so that's not print worthy. So you want to really make sure that the files you're working with are high resolution. The types of files that you're going to be working with in InDesign, specifically, your actual InDesign file that you're working on is a .indd file, and that will be layered, and that's what Hillary will be working on today. The type of file you submit for printing typically is a PDF. I'll talk a little bit in a minute about sometimes when you're submitting for print, what they ask for, they might ask for more. And then with your image files, you can use JPEGs, TIFFs, EPS, which is highlighted because that's a vector. The rest of these are most of these are pixelated. And then PDF, PSD, and PNGs. Those are the ones that can be popped into an InDesign. I personally prefer to use TIFFs or EPS when I'm doing design and InDesign. The other thing that you want to be sensitive to when you're creating an InDesign, especially if this is, we're doing this workshop more for if you're using InDesign to submit to a printer to actually have a physical printed publication rather than an image that you're going to put on the internet, which you can utilize this program to do that as well, but it is primarily used for print. When you're printing, you want to use CMYK color profile and not RGB. CMYK is cyan, magenta, yellow, and key, which is black, versus RGB, which is red, green, blue. When you're looking at a computer screen, you see RGB. And when you're looking at something that's printed, you're seeing CMYK. There's slightly different color profiles. So you want to create your image, you want to create your document in CMYK so you can see what you're going to be getting on your print. Sometimes if you do it in the other and you end up printing it out, that's when you get all those off colors and things just seem a little out of whack. Another kind of important tip for creating these files, you're going to have a lot of pieces coming into your document, whether they're images, you're going to have your copy, which you always want to create your copy before you actually create your file. You never want to be editing copy in an InDesign program. You want to be editing your copy in Word and having those cutting and pasting them in. So file organization is really important. I tend to have a main folder for the project and then subfolders, such as one that has copy in it, another subfolder that has all the images I'm using, another subfolder that has all the fonts, and then another subfolder that has the actual InDesign file I'm creating. And then I'll have a separate subfolder that is my to print files. Note that sometimes when you submit a document to a printer, they might not just accept the PDF. That is a print ready PDF, which is a specific way to save it that Hillary will go over. That includes the marks for the bleed and everything and the cut marks. So sometimes it goes printer by printer. I've had some printers that request a zipped file that has the InDesign file and all of the image files that I've used in the creation. And so it's really helpful to have them all organized in this manner because this is kind of what they're going to want to see when you submit them. So it's just kind of a good idea to start out your project with good file organization. And then my last tip is utilizing resources. There's a lot that you can do with InDesign and other Adobe products. They tend to, you work with them together. When I'm working on a document in InDesign, I typically also have Photoshop up and I'm, working on everything that I'm, my images and stuff in there, and then updating my link in my InDesign to fix things. So Utilize the Adobe InDesign reference guide. It's almost 700 pages, but it has everything that you need to know about the program. I reference it pretty regularly. And then also online tutorials and videos. There's PDFs available free online. Pretty much anything that you're wanting to know, like look it up. It's the whole work smarter, not harder thing. And then also if you're on a university campus, I personally have audited typography and design classes. It's really awesome to kind of just get to take the class and use those resources as well. So I know I went over everything real quick. I'm going to pop it over to Hillary and I'll be in the chat. So there's a lot that she's working on in this, and we're trying not to go like super fast so you can kind of follow along. So if you have any questions, go on and pop it in the chat and I'll answer them as we're going along. So let me stop sharing. And give it over to you, Hillary.
All right, thanks, Naomi. Let me share my screen here. All right, can everyone see that all right? Should see this nice, our newsletter template here. Okay, perfect, thanks for the thumbs up. Sometimes I never know. Okay, so this is the newsletter template that we're gonna be working on today. And so it's a 2-page design. So this is the first page. You can see it's a 3-column layout. We have some nice, we have our header, we have a nice eye-catching image right at the top. We have another kind of image that sort of brings those same colors in. We have some nice kind of fall color theme. Our second page is kind of an offset 2-column layout, and then we have a couple more images and we bring those kind of same colors in through the whole design. So today we're actually just going to be doing the first page, just to make sure that I have enough time to go over everything, and just as Naomi said, trying to keep it really simple. And so we're just going to be doing the first page today, and then in our second part, which I think is tentatively scheduled for January, but I think Matt will send out that information later. We'll be going over the second page and then some other kind of more advanced techniques. So let's get into it. I'm going to go over this step by step, and I'm going to start by creating a new document. So to do that, I am going to go up to File here, just New Document. Super simple. If you're on the Mac, you can also do Command N or Control N if you're on a Windows computer. So Naomi did mention that for printed documents, it's very important to have your document set to CMYK color format. And to do that, we're just going to go up here to this print option. And this will just ensure that your document is just set to CMYK from the start. And we're just going to do just a standard letter size document here. And then we're going to go over to our document preset details. And you can see that the units, it defaults to picas, which I don't usually normally use, but if you click this drop down arrow, you can see that there are quite a few other units of measurement. I usually just do inches. That's what I'm most familiar with. If you're more familiar with millimeters, centimeters, pixels, you can set it to your preference. This will just ensure, this is what sets the ruler on the side of your document. So if you're more comfortable with, say, centimeters and you want your ruler to be in centimeters, go for it. And so our document is going to be a 2-page document, and we're going to leave this checkbox under facing pages checked. That is good standard procedure for if you're getting something printed. They prefer that. It's just easier on their, for professional printers. That's the best layout to use. And you can see that there's all kinds of preset details here. We have a columns option, and I did mention that we're going to be doing a 3-column layout today. I'm actually going to set that when we get into the document. So I'm just going to leave this as 1 column right now, and then I'm going to demonstrate how to set those columns in just a sec. And then we're going to scroll down and we're going to set our margins. So it defaults to 1/2-inch margins, and that is that's pretty standard. I'm actually going, you can adjust these depending on your design. And for this design, I'm actually going to do 1/4-inch margins. And then bleed is also another very important one, especially if you're getting it printed. The bleed will just ensure that if you have an image like that big header image of the mountains that I have in the design, it goes all, you can see it goes all the way to the edge of the page. If you're wanting it to be printed all the way to the edge of the page, you need to kind of extend it just slightly beyond the document. So when it's the printers print and cut the document, that'll ensure that there isn't any white space on the edge. So the standard bleed size is 1.25 inches. So we're just gonna go with the standard here. So now I'm gonna go ahead and click create. And now you see our nice new document. And so now we're gonna start off by creating our columns. Like I mentioned, that we're going to be doing a 3-column layout. So to set our columns when we're in the document here, we will go up to layout, margins, and columns, and you'll see this little window pop up. So I'm going to set this to 3, and then you'll see these grid lines appear here. And you can see that there's this little bit of space in between each column. That's called the gutter. And you can actually just adjust this right in this window. If you want narrower columns with more space in between, you can just set a larger gutter. If you want columns that are wider with little to no space, you can adjust that accordingly. I'm going to leave ours at 1/4 of an inch today. And there we go. We have our nice, beautiful 3-column layout. All right, so our next step is going to be to insert that main image. If we go back to our, sorry, I have all these screen sharing things in my way. Here we go. Okay. So if we go back to our template, I'm going to now insert this nice big image. To do that, I'm going to go over to this rectangular frame tool, and I'm just going to click and drag just kind of about where I want that image to be. It doesn't need to be exact. We can adjust it later, and you'll see this kind of red line that's outside of the document. That's the bleed line that I mentioned earlier. So that is why I extended this frame all the way out to that red line, because we really want our image to go to the edge of the page. So now that we have our frame drawn, I am going to go up to File, Place. And as Naomi mentioned, I have all of my images saved in I have created a newsletter template here just on my desktop. And you can see that I have my links. I have this is my text document that I have all my copy in. And then I have my newsletter template saved. So in this links file here, I have all my images, and we are going to choose this nice, beautiful mountain photo. And so you'll see that it comes in really zoomed in. This is a really large image. As Naomi mentioned, you really want to use high quality images. And so this is a super large, professionally taken photo. And so that's why it's coming in super zoomed, because it's way bigger than our frame. And it's really easy to adjust that. If you go just left click, and we're going to go to fitting, we're going to fill frame proportionally. And see, there we go. That'll zoom it out for you. And you will notice that this little circle appears with a little hand icon. If you click on that, you'll see this kind of orange bounding box appear. That represents the full size of the image. And then in this frame, this is, if you kind of click on this frame, you'll see these boxes appear. And if you just click and drag, you can kind of actually reveal the rest of the image, which is a cool feature. But we want it kind of to be sort of rectangular and narrow. And if you also click on this, you can kind of just click and drag and sort of move the image around within that frame. So if I wanted more of the trees in this image, I could kind of just drag, just kind of click and drag, or if I wanted more mountains, pull it the other way. I kind of want a little bit of both. So I'm going to just leave it right there. And there we go. And then I want it just a little bit farther down. So it's a lot of adjusting when you're in here doing the design. All right, so next we're going to add our fall newsletter heading right at the top. And we're going to go over here to our type tool. And then we're just going to click and drag our text box just right above the image. And since this is just a short little sentence here, not even a full sentence, I'm just going to go ahead and type it in instead of copying and pasting. And then we're going to adjust our font settings. So Adobe has a lot of really fun font options. There's a lot of online resources about font pairings. and what goes together. I feel like that's kind of a fun part of design that I really have gone down a rabbit hole on a few times, is trying to find the perfect fonts to use. So I chose a couple fun ones that I use a lot today. I'm just using 2 in this document, which I feel like is good practice. I usually try to stick to no more than 2, or maybe 3 at the most. I would say 2. Otherwise, it can get a little busy, a little bit chaotic. I usually like to choose a serif font and a sans serif font. I think that creates kind of a fun balance. So for my serif font, I chose this one that I really like. It's called Play Fair Display. And then I'm going to choose bold. And since, oops, it's a little bit more bold than I wanted. And since this is our heading, we're going to set this at 40 point, just so it's nice and big. And there we go. We have our heading. And if we just navigate back to our template, I have this nice kind of green color that I really like. I thought it was kind of a nice fall vibe. So I will show you how to change that color. So we want to make sure that our text is highlighted. And there's a couple of different ways to change color. If you go over here to this T icon and you click on that, you'll see this kind of color picker show up, which is really fun. You can just kind of click and drag as many color options as you could ever want. And if you also have a specific color, if you have the hex code for a specific color, which you can actually just copy and paste that into that box down here, and that will come up with the color of your choice. But I actually have some set colors for this design. So I'm going to go over here to my libraries option, and this is really nice. So let me just show you my library. So I have, since I work for Boise State and I do a lot of our marketing design, I have my Boise State color palettes here. I have my digital, I have my print. That just ensures that I'm using the exact colors for the exact design type that I'm doing. So libraries are really helpful, and we'll kind of go into those more in some of our later sessions. But for now, I'm going to go, I have my fall colors library, and this is where I have my really nice green. So I'm just going to click on that. And now we have our fall newsletter heading. And all right, there we're going. Okay, so now we're going to add our date. And again, we're just going to go up to our type tool. And we're just going to kind of draw just another text box right above our heading. And I will put in our date today. Everyone gets to watch me type, and hopefully I spell everything correctly. Okay, so I'm going to set this to my sans serif font because I really like the juxtaposition of the 2 fonts next to each other. So I chose a font called, Lato, which I really enjoy. And we're going to set it to 11. I'm going to be using 11-point font for all of the copy text in this document. And I actually want this to be in all caps. So I'm going to show you a cool thing that InDesign does. So if you accidentally leave caps lock on and you realize that you've like typed a bunch of words and you're like, oh, I don't want to have to delete and go back and retype everything, you can actually go up to this type option and choose change case. So you can choose uppercase, lowercase, title case, sentence case. So I'm going to choose uppercase for this. And that's, yeah, super. I use this all the time. It's really great. So you can see it defaulted to just black, and we want it to match this green color. So I'm going to highlight this text, and I'm going to go over to this little eyedropper tool. This is another thing that I use quite a bit. And so I'm going to hover just over one of the letters in our heading and just click that. And now you can see that we have it in green. And so let's go over to this here. So we're in normal view right now, where you can see the ruler, you can see our grid lines, just really great for when you're wanting to align everything and you're designing. But if you want to see a preview of how it'll look when it's printed, you can go over to this preview box here. And then now you can see these are actually a little bit far apart now. So I'm actually just kind of going to adjust this in the preview mode, because sometimes it's a little bit easier to see without all of the background grid lines. So I do this quite a bit when I'm designing. I kind of switch back and forth just to make sure everything is looking good. But for now, let's go back to our normal view. And we're going to go ahead and add our column text now. And let's just go back and just take a quick peek at our template. And we have 2 headings here. We have our first kind of I'm going to say article in quotes just because I have just placeholder text here. It's not a true article. But our first article covers our first 2 columns, and then we have another nice image here. So let's go back to our new design and get started. And a lot of this is very repetitive, like entering the text, but I just want to make sure, since this is a session for beginners, that hopefully seeing this multiple times will really help it stick for when you go into your own InDesign documents. So let's just draw another text box in our first column. And we will, so we can actually set the, one thing I wanted to bring up was we can set the font settings in a text box before we even actually type anything in. So let me go ahead and do that. And I'm using the Playfair display font for all of our headings. And do bold. And so this one I'm going to set to 25 point, just because it's still, oops, there we go. So I chose 25 just because it's still a large eye-catching heading, but it doesn't quite compete with our header at the top. So again, we're going to change this to green by using our eyedropper tool and just hovering over the color that we want. Okay. Perfect. So now let's go ahead and add our column text, and we're going to go draw. We're going to draw another text box. We're going to get really good at this. And we don't want to bring it quite to the bottom because we're going to be inserting that pumpkin image down at the bottom. So I'm just going to draw it to about here. And then I have all of my copy text over in my Word document here. So let me just copy and paste this over. And there we go. And since it's not formatted to the font that I wanted, I'm going to go ahead and change that again up here in the font selection box. And I'm going to choose 11. Okay. And one thing I wanted to point out with paragraph text is you can see, let me zoom in here. And if I'm going too fast or if I'm moving around too much and you're getting motion sick, please just let me know. I don't usually teach this over Zoom, so this is a new one for me. So if I'm going too fast, please let me know. And you can see here some of our words are hyphenated across multiple lines, and that doesn't look super great professionally. And I can't really think of an instance where I would necessarily want that. So you can easily adjust that by going over to this paragraph window here. And there's just right here, there's a hyphenate option. We're just going to uncheck that. So now you can see it adjusted our paragraph. So now we don't have any words that are split over 2 lines. Another thing to be aware of when you're using text boxes, if I click and drag this up, you'll see this kind of red plus sign appear. And that's really important to keep track of, because that indicates that your text box is too small for the text that you copied and pasted in there. And if you sent this to print without adjusting the text box, it would cut off the text that you aren't seeing. So a quick way to adjust that is if you left click, go back to fitting, and you'll have this fit frame to content option. And that'll just quickly adjust your text box to the size of the text that you have in there. So that's really important to keep an eye on. I actually, when I first started out and didn't really know much about InDesign, I sent someone a document to review before printing, and they were like, where's the rest of this text? And that is how I learned that that's an important thing to watch out for. So let's go ahead and now add our pumpkin image. And we're going to just go back up to our rectangular frame tool here. I'm just going to draw another frame box, go back up to File, Place, and then it'll take us back to our links file here. And I'm just going to choose this nice, fun pumpkins image. And again, it's super zoomed in because I chose a really large image. And so we're going to go fitting, fill frame proportionally. Perfect. And I kind of like where that image is, so we will leave it and we will go to our next column. So again, text box, just click and drag, and then we will copy and paste over from our Word document. And see, my little red plus sign appeared here. So let's adjust this text box to fit our text. Perfect. And I am going to just go ahead and reformat this to match the rest of our text. You're going to see me do this quite a bit. There we go. Perfect. And one really nice thing about InDesign, when you're in this kind of normal layout mode, let me zoom back in here a little bit. They make it really easy to align. So if I wanted this text box aligned with my heading text box, you can actually just kind of click and drag, and you'll see these kind of, I hope you can see it on your screen, this kind of green and pink line appear. So that green line indicates that now these text boxes are aligned. And this text box is also, that the pink line represents, that's the middle of the document. So this text box is now center aligned in the document. So that's one really nice thing about InDesign, is that they create these grids that make alignment super easy. And I'm also noticing that this paragraph is hyphenated as well. So I'm going to go back and change that in our paragraph menu and just unhyphenate. Awesome. All right, so let's just zoom out and just take a quick little look at in our preview mode and just see how things are looking. So looking pretty good so far. So let's move on. We're going to go back to our template really quick. I'm going to now show how to insert this fun little green rectangle, and then we're going to put our white text over that. So to do that, we're going to go up to our rectangular tool. And if you left click on this, you'll see that you have a couple different shape options. And this is how you insert shapes into your document. So you can do circles, you can do, the polygon tool is fun because it lets you put in however many sides you want. So you can get really crazy with your shapes. Today, we're just going to stick with the rectangular tool. So our green rectangle overlaps our image a little bit. So we're just going to click and draw our rectangle, and it's going to be the full width of our column plus out to that red bleed line, because we want it to go to the edge of our document. And you'll see that it shows up transparent at first. And so we're going to go to our eyedropper tool again, and we're just going to click on our green color. And bingo, there we go. All right, so now we're going to insert our third column text into here. And I'm actually just going to copy and paste this header 1 over here, because sometimes that's quicker. And you can see these 3 green lines appear, and that indicates that this text box is now aligned with that heading 1 text box. And since the font in here is green, you obviously can't see it right now. So I am going to go and just change this font to, let's change it to I'm gonna use the color picker here because it's fun, just to a white. And then we're going to change our text to heading 2. All right, okay, so one last column of text here. So let's go back to our type tool. We're going to draw another text box, and we're going to just have it just come right to our kind of pink margin line. So we're not going to go all the way to the bleed line with this one. We're just going to take it to that pink margin line. And I am going to, for this one, adjust the font settings before I copy and paste, just because that is, it's kind of nice to just copy and paste your text in and have it already formatted. So here we go. And then let's do one more copy and paste from our Word document. And let's change this to, oops, sorry, you get to watch me try to copy and paste everything. Here we go, okay. And I'm gonna use my eyedropper and just select this white color. Perfect, there we go. And let's just review and see how we're looking here. And if you wanted to kind of adjust anything, so I'm kind of seeing, I think this text box looks a little bit far from this heading. So I'm just gonna kind of click and drag it up so that it's a little bit closer, and just kind of adjust in this preview mode, because I tend to find that a little bit easier. And then this one's a little bit far from the heading too. So there we go, perfect. And so our last element that we're going to add is, if we go back here, we're going to add our contact information here at the bottom. I do a lot of designing for our SSS program, so we send out a lot of stuff to our students and also to other faculty and staff on campus. And so we really want our contact information on our design. So this is something I've gotten into the habit of doing. If you don't feel like you need it, that's totally fine. It's just something I always like to include our phone number, our location, and our email. Just if we're sending out marketing materials, I think it's good practice. So, all right, one more text box. Here we go. Let's click and drag here. And so for this, I am just going to type it in just because it's one line. I'm just going to do a just fake email here. And trying to type while people watch me. Our phone number and our location. And again, we will adjust our font up here at the top. And for this one, I'm going to choose bold, just so it's a little bit more eye-catching, and hopefully people will see it and will reach out. And I'm going to just adjust this text box so it perfectly fits with the text here. That makes it easier for alignment. If I wanted to, you can align it centrally, and you can kind of see that sort of pink line appear. If I kind of move it around a little bit, you see that indicates that it's now perfectly aligned in between these two columns. If I want it to be left aligned, I can align it here with this image. And I think I like it more left aligned, so I'm going to leave it there. But let's check our preview mode, and we can see how we're doing. Okay, so I think we're looking pretty good here. And let me just check my notes to make sure I didn't miss any important points that I wanted to bring up. Okay, so now that we're looking good, I'm going to go ahead and show you how to save it. And we're going to be coming back to this document for part 2 because we're going to be going over that second page. So I'm going to save it. To save it as an InDesign file, you just go up to Save File and then Save. And then you can give it any title that you want. And then you can see that it's in this InDesign format. And so still save it as a newsletter here. And then I would save it into my my newsletter template. And I will just go ahead and do that. Perfect. And then so Naomi did mention that if you're sending it to print, they often will want a PDF file with printer's marks. So I will also show you how to do that. And if you go up to File, you want to choose Adobe PDF Presets, and then you're going to choose High Quality Print. And then just kind of same thing here, but if you go to Save, you'll get this Export Adobe PDF window that pops up. And you'll see this kind of left-hand menu. If you go to the marks and bleeds, you'll see this option for printer's marks. And you can choose all printer's marks or just, and I've actually, in my experience, the printers that I've worked with have really just wanted crops and bleeds for the most part. So each printer is different. It depends who you're working with. They'll let you know what they need. They'll also usually let you know if there's any issues, like with the CMYK format. I've had printers come back and be like, hey, some of your colors aren't, somehow they got switched to RGB and you need to fix them. And so most like professional printers, obviously they know what they're doing. So they'll let you know what they need. So once you click all print, we'll just do all printers marks for this. And we will say export, and then that will save into our file. So let me see if I can go find that file now and show you what all of the printers marks look like. Sorry, it's going to take me a second to navigate there. Sorry, you get to watch me navigate around for a second. Okay, let's do our newsletter template and newsletter PDF. That might take a second to load. Okay, so now you can see that, let me try to see if I can zoom out a little bit. Okay, so you can see that there's these crop marks, and that is where once the printers like print this out, that is where they'll actually physically cut the document. And then we have our color bars, which that just kind of shows all the colors that you have in your document. Like I said, I have never actually needed, I've never had a printer need that information, but it is there if they do need it. So that is, I think, kind of all that I have to go over now. If anyone has any questions or wants me to kind of go over anything again, I'd be happy to do that. So we wanted to just make sure we left time for questions at the end. Or Naomi, if I missed anything and there's anything you want me to touch on, please let me know.
No, I think you did a great job. The only thing that I would note is when you're saving the PDF and you go, if you want to go back into that PDF print area, I've just been told to, under the Adobe, actually, let me get in there so I say it properly. I feel like you're going to save it. Under compatibility over there at the top, where it's like the very top, you know, you have standard and then compatibility, to hit that drop down and have it be the highest level of Adobe Acrobat, because then it'll include all of the previous versions of Adobe Acrobat, or of the Acrobat. So
okay, that's
that
good to
way
know. I actually did not know that.
it'll be the most compatible with everybody's Acrobat programs. So that's my little tip.
Excellent. Yeah, that is actually something I did not know. So I learned something new.
And then Matt asked, and I answered it in the chat, is there a recommended printer setting for a standard office color printer? So no, you'll just do save it as a PDF. If you're gonna be cutting it down from the regular size of a 8x10 or an 8x11 paper, then 8.5 by 11, I guess. Then you can add the bleed marks. It'll just make it easier for you to know where you're cutting if you're wanting a bleed. And then of course your paper will be smaller. But if not, then just save it as a regular without the crop and the bleed marks. And then it'll just kind of like shrink it down to size. So you will have a little white border of the paper because our printers won't, print off the edges. But you can just save it as the print PDF without the marks. All right. Awesome.
I was maybe gonna, if you want to close out of your screen share, I can show some of the bigger stuff that, like, so this is obviously like a one-page newsletter, or the equivalent of doing like a flyer for an event or something. But I mean, you can do much larger things as well. So Hillary's helped us out at like the NAEOP level. So this is a big 55-page document that is like our whole conference program, right? And so you can see there's like all kinds of different structures as you kind of go throughout. But all this was done through the InDesign. We also kind of had made the sponsor guide for the conference the year before, but just kind of showing some examples of what's out there. And then I'd done this one as well, which I know Hillary had put together for Idaho for like their fact book. You can see the layout is a little different than kind of your standard piece, but just showing some examples of some of the bigger things, especially when you're talking about things that are being looked at printed professionally. Kind of these examples that exist out here. I'm sure if we pulled up the actual InDesign copy of these files, they would look far more complex than just the straightforward versions we're looking at here, but just showing some other examples. Yeah, if anybody has any questions or thoughts or even things they want to share too, right? One of the things that is exciting is that we can kind of all learn from each other on this work. Most of us are not actual like graphic designers. That's why we're working in Trio. We're just kind of aspiring. So we like creating these spaces just to kind of share ideas, thoughts, or even templates, right? That can be a really good way to kind of build community up. Naomi, myself, and Hillary, we all kind of do the tech stuff for different states out here in the region. That's how we get connected. So just sharing even some of these templates and designs can be really helpful. So you don't have to start from scratch necessarily.
I actually do that. For our program, we do a winter newsletter and a spring newsletter. They're 8 pages long. And I have created a winter template and a spring template. And so I'm able to just update it and plop them in. So it makes it so each, twice a year when I'm having to work on our program newsletter, it's really, really easy and a lot less time consuming once you have that template built for yourself.
Yeah, that's when I do the NAEOP program every year. I kind of have a basic template that I just put information into and then kind of tweak little design elements here and there. But yeah, templates are great. And then I also did want to say that if anyone has any questions that they think of later, totally feel free to reach out. I am more than happy to answer any questions. Naomi, I'm sure you probably would be too. I'm going to speak for you, but I'll put my email in the chat. And so if you think of anything later, I know it's kind of a lot of information all in one go here. So if you think of something later, feel free to email me anytime.
And in January, when we do the next series, we'll be focusing a little bit more on some of the more advanced pieces like kerning, spacing between letters, and how to get everything to fit and look professional and clean and nice, as well as you know, some of the other cool ways of integrating the other Adobe products in.
Yeah, and so in December, so we have like one more of these kind of professional development series, the third Thursday, there's a second. It's coming in December, but I will be sending out. So if you're in the NAEOP region, if you're on the listserv, there'll be a calendar invite going over that. And then kind of on all the listservs, we'll put our usual advertisement for those. So if you're interested in doing a part 2 or doing a more advanced version of this, you have time to do that. Like Naomi said, hopefully you have access to this. I think really what it takes most of is just playing around and messing with it. Once you've done a couple of them, you realize it's not so intimidating, but those Adobe programs are, you know, the most professional programs out there really that do this work. Like the most highest paid professionals that do this work use this stuff. So it can feel like a steep learning curve. So today was very much designed to just make it less intimidating to just do some simple stuff and get in there and start utilizing these tools. So, and similar to what Naomi said, most of our institutions do have some access to Adobe programs. So even if you maybe can't pay for it out of grant funds, hopefully there's some avenues to do that through institutions if you are the content creator for your programs and all the different staff that work with you. So if there are not any other questions, I want to thank you all for your time today. I'll stick around for another minute or so. If anybody does want to hang around, just ask something one-on-one. Otherwise, I hope you all have a good rest of your evening.